Welcome, everybody, to CSR Talent Group's Insider Insights series, where we interview some of our experts about their special backgrounds and skills to give you insights into issues that are of interest to you. And today we have with us Sarah Harris. She is the founder and chief impact officer of Accelerate Impact, which is really focused on aligning purpose with profit. And I'll tell you more in a second about the focus of today's discussion. But she spent a lot of her time creating social impact platforms and purpose-driven ad campaigns, and has a great deal of experience both in her own company and with companies that she's worked at before. Today's session is really about how to monetize social responsibility and make money and do good and earn a return on investment on your impact and sustainability strategy, which I think is becoming more and more important as CEOs and senior executives question us about the work that we're doing and the value that it's providing to a company. So today, Sarah's going to talk about that and leave you with some practical insights about how to take those first steps. And feel free to contact either one of us if you have additional questions or you want to talk to Sarah in more detail about her work. So Sarah, let's start off with a very obvious question. So beyond being good for the environment, the world around us, how do brands really reap value from their impact and sustainability strategies? And what are the business imperatives that are driving organizations to action right now, especially with a lot of the pushback that I think companies are seeing around ESG and some other issues?
Yeah. Tom, it's great to be with you today having this conversation. There are so many voices in the marketplace right now pushing business leaders to think critically about how they're operating their business, what they stand for, and how they're weaving that into their strategy and into their storytelling. And I'll just hit on a few of the drivers that I see happening. There's been a lot of conversation recently about the SEC's latest ruling on climate disclosures.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a regulatory pressure that certainly public companies have been feeling and are feeling even more so more recently, and that's just going to continue to increase. A lot of businesses have already been responding to investor pressure that has been mounting over the years, even before there was all the chatter in the marketplace about ESG. And the investor community has been asking questions about what is your sustainability strategy? How are you linking that to risk mitigation and value creation for your business? Really, because it's sustainable businesses are better investments for the long haul and ultimately deliver greater returns. I think it's about 80% of investors agree with that, despite some of the rhetoric that we hear in the marketplace. So there's regulatory, there's investor pressure that's happening, sort of the Wall Street conversation. But Main Street businesses all across the country are responding to the growing expectations of employees and of consumers. Those are the two groups that have been consistently looking for purpose-driven brands in terms of where I want to spend my career and the place I want to be working for. And especially in the marketplace, consumers for decades now have been increasingly aligning their purchasing habits with their values and with brands that reflect those values. So a business leader is getting that pressure from kind of all directions. But the good news is all those voices are unified in the raising expectation for business leaders to operate sustainably and to do so in a way that makes sense for their brand, and makes sense for the community, and lets people really be a part of that process.
That's great. I want to dig into that a little bit, but let's talk about some examples so we can give people a real sense of what you're talking about. And let's talk also about, not just consumer brands, because there are a lot of B2Bs that are doing work in this space. And I think some of those executives are questioning the value of what they're doing if they're not getting that consumer pressure. So talk to me about some of the companies that you see that are doing this well.
Yeah, the B2B examples, this idea of operating for good and making money and doing good sounds good in theory, but the reality is I've seen a couple of different ways in which businesses can do this. One is to, from a B2B perspective, open up a new market. So take what you're already good at, move into go serve a new segment of the market, that serving that segment of the market allows you to create impact while obviously driving revenue. And the quick story I want to share about that way of growing your business is actually for early in my career, I was working at a traditional broadcast media company that's in the business of aggregating an audience and then monetizing that audience by inviting advertisers to sell products and services to those consumers and ultimately get them to take action. And so we opened up a new category of business, which was talking to corporate nonprofit partnerships, some government agencies, and said, there's a whole new category of advertisers that have a cause marketing message or a public awareness message that need the traditional advertising vehicle, but a very different messaging platform. And ultimately, we were able to build a very significant business that was taking what we did best as a advertising and a media company and then just opening up a new segment of advertisers that were interested in using that platform for public education, public benefit, public awareness campaigns. So business leaders can look at, what am I already good at? Where's there a new market that if I move into that new market, it would let me grow my top line revenue and create positive impact in the world around me?
Hmm.
So that's one example. Happy to elaborate on others.
Okay. Yeah, and let's keep going on the examples. And also, I think we wanted to talk a little bit about, the companies that are telling their story really well. And obviously, the ones that you see telling the story really well are most likely consumer brands, or the ones that are doing advertising to a broader audience, not just to a business audience. But yeah, keep going with examples and maybe talk a little bit about those companies that are also telling the story well, because that seems to be a really important aspect of not only just reaching consumers, but making employees feel really good about the companies that they work for.
Yeah, I have two other examples on just, first of all, how do you make money? How do you
Yep.
have an impact strategy that is value creating for your business? We are seeing more what I would call impact first businesses emerge in the marketplace. So these are businesses that are solving a community need with a business model that works. So as you grow the business, the impact in the community, those two things are completely intertwined in lockstep.
Hmm.
So an example of that is Wonder School. This is a software as a service, a SaaS platform that exists to solve the shortage of daycare options that we have in communities across the country. And so their platform is marketed to both sides of the marketplace. They get daycare providers to join the platform, and then they promote the platform to parents who are seeking caregiving options in their local community. And so this is just a connecting marketplace to help solve that sort of really like lack of access to daycare options.
Hmm. Interesting.
City, yeah. So that's just an interesting. This is B2B. This is a software platform. The more they grow their business, the more they help address that need. But obviously, they're driving revenue by building their platform to be a bigger influence. So City Impact Fund, which is a piece of City Financial, saw this business model and saw the opportunity to invest in growing that impact business, which is again addressing the daycare shortage. But doing that also stabilizes income and financial security and housing security for in-home daycare providers, which helps City achieve some of its financial empowerment goals. So all the incentives are aligned. So City invests in the Wonder School platform. Wonder School platform gets more daycare providers on the network. More daycare providers on the network means more access for parents who are looking for caregiving options. It strengthens the sort of segment of the economy that is the daycare, and it lets more workers be in the workforce.
Hmm.
So it's all the incentives are aligned. Wonder School grows its business, and we see social impact and social returns at the same time. So that's a fully aligned impact strategy business.
And it's interesting that you brought that up. Many years ago, I heard about a company that was doing just that, sort of accelerator investments in their company that were socially impact focused. And they gave those initiatives a little more time and actually helped to fund them a little bit more than they would have for their normal business initiatives. And is that what you're seeing with some of these initiatives, that there's maybe a crossover with the community investment funding that or that department is helping to accelerate some of these initiatives?
Yeah, there's definitely a movement for all different types of blended finance. So a traditional campaign investment that you expect a quicker return on maybe, or then some longer term investment tools that allow you to build these impact businesses that might have a different time horizon on the return. I think there's a lot of funders are getting interested in that and realizing that you can use capital in creative ways to open up new impact businesses, to give them time to grow. And doing so really helps create sustainable solutions, right? Like if you can build a business model
Yeah.
that sustainably solving a social need, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it generates the return then back to the investor. So I
So
do
I,
see a big growth in that. And then just one more quick example on how do businesses grow through impact. A lot of people who are listening now might be saying, this is great. I'm not doing a startup business. I'm a legacy business.
yeah.
I've been around for decades or even longer. And I like to point to the example of Unilever. So a huge product, multinational company that is consumer facing, but they really looked at their business portfolio and said, we're sort of a giant in the CPG goods space. How do we keep creating growth? Like, do we just create, more products all the time? When we know that has a bad environmental impact and the pressure is rising, that we lessen our impact and improve our results for our community. So they began retrofitting their business for sustainability. And in doing so, created tremendous growth and tremendous value for the portfolio of Unilever brands. So they looked at all of their brands and identified a subset, which they call the sustainable living brands. And one at a time, they went through that operation and said, how do we improve the way that we're building this product, packaging, distributing, selling, and the end of life sort of cycle for the product, the whole thing top to bottom? How do we improve that from an environmental and sustainability perspective, and then carry it through to the storytelling so that consumers are then ultimately choosing these brands? Think of the Dove Real Beauty campaign that we know. Choosing these brands because of what they stand for and how they're being literally produced. Unilever has, just to sort of recap that story, these sustainable living brands they grow 50% faster than traditional brands in the Unilever portfolio, and taken together create 60% of Unilever's overall total growth. So if you're in a legacy business and you're thinking, how do I play a role here? Retrofitting targeted areas of your business and being very focused and very strategic about how do I make this line of my product more sustainable can deliver big returns for the total portfolio.
And I imagine larger companies like that and Procter & Gamble can use their marketing and advertising power to really help accelerate some of these smaller brands that obviously can't do it as well on their own.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And I know you want to talk about some of our impact storytelling, and Procter & Gamble is a really great example of leader in marketing and advertising, leader in their brand work, and also has been on this journey of how do we look at our business more sustainably and make sure that our products are designed and built and produced in an environmentally friendly way, but all the way through to how the consumer uses that product, making sure it's as mindful as possible. And the example that is just a recent case study of success here is the Tide laundry detergent. They have done a lot of work on trying to have recyclable packaging and just reduce plastic in packaging. And the latest insight is really the next best way to improve and lessen the environmental impact of Tide is on the consumer end. And the insight is that if you wash your laundry in cold water, it is equally as effective in cleaning your clothes, and it uses 90% less energy to do so. So that's a fantastic insight. That's great for the environment if we can all start washing our laundry in cold, but it requires consumer action for Tide to have that impact, that positive net benefit for the environment. So they tapped into their advertising and creative prowess. They created this Tide Turn to Cold campaign. They linked that environmental benefit with an economic benefit for the consumer. Hey, turning to cold also saves you money on your utility bill, so you've got a financial incentive to do this campaign. And then they used celebrities and influencers in the commercial to make it fun, to make it memorable. If anyone hasn't checked out the Turn to Cold campaign, I recommend checking it out on YouTube. The commercials will make you laugh and they'll remind you it's important to turn to cold. But that's a great example of a campaign where incentives, again, were aligned. Procter & Gamble used its strength in advertising to do that storytelling. That campaign, Turn to Cold, generated 2 billion in earned media impressions. It resulted in more than a billion loads of laundry
Mm.
being washed in cold laundry, which then has that environmental impact of lessening the energy usage. And for Tide, it drove sales up 39% during that campaign window, which is pretty phenomenal. So you're improving your sales, you're improving the environment, you're deepening your engagement with your consumers. Again, incentives are aligned in a really positive outcome.
So I want to get into some of the practical
Mhm.
issues, how people get started, because I'm sure there are a lot of people listening to this who frankly may not identify with Tide or P&G or Unilever. They have smaller companies or different kind of company. Um, but I also want to just step back for a second. Let's get into how you get started. But I also want to ask you about, the sustainability strategies, because P&G obviously looked at Tide and said, well, there's an opportunity here. There is a product here that's having an impact on society that we can have an influence on. And so when you help companies think about getting started, obviously the first part of that is helping them with their sustainability strategy and identifying areas that might be of concern where they might be at risk for stakeholder action or employees pushing back. So tell us a little bit about how you get started. What are those steps, and how should companies that may be very new to this think about the first very basic steps to take and how to get this moving?
Yeah. I like to think of things in threes to keep it simple.
Hmm.
And wherever you are on your sustainability journey, you can use this process to take the next step. Number one, get clear on your purpose. What is it you're trying to do with your sustainability strategy? Number two, take authentic action. To your point, avoid the risk of backlash by being authentic and having significant actions you're taking within your operations that align with your strategy. And then number three, share your story. You don't get the brand benefit, the employee love benefit if you don't tell your story and connect people to it. So
Hmm.
get clear on purpose, take authentic action, share your story are the three things I think everybody can walk away today and think about. Just to give a little more substance around that, your brand purpose is really thinking about what does our brand do better than anyone else? What do our customers need and expect from us? And how can we deliver that in a way that matters to the world? And it's where those three things overlap that a brand has a credible purpose that it can lean into. And then from there, it can design here's our operational strategy. Here's how we're going to take action on that. And then after you have put those actions in place and you're beginning to live that purpose, you have a credible story to share with your employees and with your consumers. And it's really in sharing that story that you get the flywheel of value and benefit coming back to your brand, because now you are clearly moving in a direction. You've got actions lined up with that. And now you've got a powerful brand and marketing story to tell. If you want one more story, we can share it. If not, I would say that's kind of the here's how you get started.
No, that's all great. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit on the brand purpose side, because I think people get a little confused about mission statements, values, and I think we've all seen brand purposes that may not be very inspiring. I remember seeing a story in Harvard Business Review where they compared different brand purpose statements, and some were very, very straightforward, and others were very inspiring. Anything that you can share around the brand purpose that helps people to understand what that really means and what that can look like for a company?
Yeah, the biggest thing I would encourage people to think about is being real about your brand
Yeah.
purpose. It should not be glossy words on paper that don't mean anything to anyone. And the practice that I would encourage is thinking clearly and honestly, what do we really do great? Like, what are we as a brand fantastic at
Mm.
doing? And really the core customer, like, what do they need? How are we creating value for our core customer? And how can we do that in a way that matters to the world? Like, A lot of brands live in that world of what am I good at? What does my customer need? Where do those two come together? Most brands live
Yeah.
there. That's your value prop. The thing that sets people apart and the opportunity that brands have in defining their purpose is that third layer of how do we do this in a way that matters to the communities that we serve and the greater world around us. And it's sitting with that, it's wrestling with it, thinking about it, it's message testing that across your leadership team, across your employees to find out really what that core purpose is. And then it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be, long or complicated. It should be very simple, very relatable, very understandable to all of your different
Mm.
stakeholders. And then that becomes the North Star that people can really rally around. And the thing that people are rallying around underneath that model, I mean, if you're the CFO, it resonates with you that you're getting very clear on your value prop and how you're going to create value for your customers.
Sure.
If you're a broader stakeholder, it's the emotional connection that your brand can start to form with your employees and with your customers about how you're making a difference in the world. People are looking for significance, and when a
Yeah.
brand can tap into something significant with their purpose, watch out. Like the economic piece and the significant piece go together, and it's growth.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Well, this has been really interesting. And I know it's sort of a teaser for a lot of people watching. And we want to encourage you to reach out to us if to Sarah or to me if you'd like more information. But let's leave everybody with one last question. So I know you just talked about, the practical steps, the three steps to take. Any one thing you want to leave with the viewers, anything that you haven't said, or any insight that you would like to leave with everybody?
I love that question, Tom. Thank you. I'll start with a belief. I believe that we all have more to give than we realize.
Hmm.
As humans and as business leaders, we have that capability. And wherever we are on our purpose journey or on our impact journey, if we can make money and do good at the same time, why would we not? And if we step into that, even just taking that next step in our journey, that can help us step into that potential of what we're capable of as people and as businesses. So if you can make money and do good, what are you waiting for? And watch out because the results might be greater than what you even expect.
Well, that's fantastic. Very inspiring. Well, I hope this leaves many of you with, good ideas on how to take action. And again, if you want more help or want to talk with Sarah or me about this further, please reach out. And thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Tom.